I keep seeing people talk about how they can multitask. I keep seeing ads for people saying, we want someone who's an expert multitasker. Everyone knows that multitasking doesn't work, but they think that they're great multitaskers at the same time. Why? Why does this keep happening? Why do we keep looking for productivity and efficiency when both of those things generally make us tell people to multitask, which means that they do too much at once? They don't focus on what they're doing, they don't finish, and when something does get done, it's of terrible quality, needs to be redone anyway, and usually comes with a fair amount of pain and yelling and extra meetings. So what if we just skipped that whole thing? We said, we're not going to have all these extra meetings to constantly work about talking about our work. And we're going to figure out what we need to do and we're going to get it done. So the way that we get around multitasking isn't to prioritize better. And it isn't even necessarily to limit our work in progress, because we can't limit our work in progress when the people who are giving us the work don't know what our capacity is, right? So if we're trying to limit our work in progress while people are pushing tons and tons of work on us, the only thing that we're doing is we're either not doing what they've asked, which is making them angry and making us have to do what they asked later anyway, or we are subjecting ourselves to a life of mediocre work. And none of those things work well for anybody. So I've created the board up here that we're going to look at now to combat this problem, to say, how are we really going to be efficient? Not how many tasks do you work on every week? What idiot would think that that was efficient? But how much are you doing that needed to be done? And did you do it in a way that allowed it to get done and then not come back? That's efficient. It doesn't matter how many things you do. If you do crap and it just keeps coming back, that's not productivity. That's just screwing around and then getting screwed for it later. Lots of screwing. So let's avoid that. And let's take a look at this. So if you're a CXO, if you're a middle manager, that's a scrum master, product owner, project managers, product manager, any of those things that we might want to put in there, person in the PMO. Or if you're a person who's just doing the work, and I've got bad news for everybody, there is no person who just does the work. We're all managers in our own ways. How do we make sure that everyone gets what they need so you're doing the right thing at the right time, getting the most amount of awesome work out of everyone, ourselves included, so that we feel better at the end of the day? I didn't just come to work and screw around and go to a bunch of meetings that I didn't need to. Right? So this board, let's actually look at the board. Enough pontificating. We'll look at the board. So here we are looking at the board. So you'll see that the first thing that I have here are actually the strategies. So we're looking at a little company here run by Julie, and it's Julie's company, and they're a bunch of graphic designers, and they have a niche market, and their niche market is graphic design for small independent furniture companies. And they have small independent furniture companies that work with them across North America, and some actually outside of North America. But they're a small group. They've got 16 or 17 people, and they need to focus and finish, because any project that they have can easily be derailed. But at the same time, they're like overworked, and now they're underfunded, because they used to be overworked with a lot of churn, which meant that there was always cash flow. Now they're overworked because people can complain all the time, right? But actually their market is shrinking as the global markets are shrinking in the economy that we are currently in. So right now they have 4 areas of their strategic pillars that they're visualizing in their Kanban. So they have deeper relationships, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Deeper relationships. So basically the first one is we got to have some friends. And so rather than having clients that just kind of show up and leave, they want to build long-term relationships with these companies. And that means that they need to offer them more services and they need to be super attentive to their needs up front. And this also means that they have to improve how they do work. Because if the clients are coming back and complaining about things, then it means that they have something to complain about. So they want to get that done. So they have qualitative and quantitative metrics for these. They want to convert 60% of their current project people to lifetime clients. And they want that when those clients come back and report back to them how things are going, they're like, oh man, you guys are just so great to work with. Okay. The second one, recognize thought leadership. They want to go off and they want to have more published case studies. They want to show the world what it is that they're doing. They want to give their customers some love by giving them some publicity, but at the same time, they also want to become known as people who do these things, and they're not AI. And then the next one here is fun streamlining. So fun streamlining is basically they're like, okay, we know that we have to streamline. we have to get better at things. We have to cut these costs. We have to get work done faster. Well, if you tell people to do that, they're basically going to be like, I'm working pretty hard already. I don't need to do that. But this group went off and came up with these strategic goals as a group of, they were 16, so they could easily do that. But having said that, we've worked with groups of well over 100, 150, 160 people who are all working on strategic goals together. But having said all that, fun streamlining for them is they're saying, okay, to save our company, which is called Brightview, we love our company and we are going to work together to decrease our throughput or our cycle time. So like, how long does it take us to get something? We're going to get stuff done faster. It's going to be of high quality, and we're going to use everything at our disposal. So we're going to use AI rather than being threatened by it. We're going to use outside help in order, whatever it is that they need to do, they're going to do that, and they're going to achieve these numbers and these qualitative metrics. And then lastly, build a larger family. And this one is, we know that we can't do everything. So we need a larger professional network, people who can work with us. Maybe they're video people, or maybe they're PR people, or whatever it is that they're doing. But they want to build at least 4 of these relationships and have those relationships give them work and have them be able to give those relationships work. So they have 4 strategic pillars that they're working on, and these are the things that are important to the CXOs. And they're on the board, so that the CXO sees them on the board, and that the people doing the work sees them on the board, and that the project managers see them on the board. And then after that, you have your stuff that you would expect. You have your things that you might want to do, and that's of course an incredibly long list. You can see that it just goes on and on and on and on. And this is what everybody used to be multitasking on, because when there wasn't a way to visualize this, they just started doing these things as quickly as they could, because they're all good ideas. They're all things that need to happen. And there's no system that says, wait until you can finish it to start it. All right. Then things that we will do. These are the things that we're going to do this week, right? Things that we're going to do over the next 2 weeks, whatever their time period is. Then they have the things that we are doing. And you can see now that the things that we are doing, let's make this a little bit bigger, that all of a sudden those things are noting what strategic focuses that they relate back to, right? So you start to see when you pull work in, and the first thing that you do is you say, okay, first pass is standard work. What do I think I might do? Well, I know that this is definitely going to be fun streamlining. And you know what? I'm going to write about it later. So it's also going to be part of thought leadership. So then you note what these are. And the impact on a person when they get context on what they're doing is immense. So if you just get a task that says, write a design document, you will write the design document and you won't think too much about it. But if you write the design document and then you're forced to say, okay, you know what? I know that when I write this design document for ChairGiant, that I am building a relationship with ChairGiant. And it's important to the other people that I work with that we build this relationship. that changes how you approach your work. And it makes this deeper relationship strategic pillar suddenly real. I am doing this so that we can get this done. It's no longer just we are going to come in and we are going to make these logos for you, or we're going to make these sales documents for you. It's weird. While we're doing that, I'm going to figure out ways to make sure that you come back to me in the future. And that might mean that I do something like I say, you know what, I'm about halfway done with this. Can I discuss it with you? If I'm focused on productivity, I'm going to finish this document. But maybe right now, this document, I started doing it, it's halfway done. I put it over here in client review and I call them up and I say, you know what, I want to get on a Zoom with you. And I just want to go through what I've done so far and just see what you think of it. And you know that what that's going to do is it's going to deepen your conversation with the client. It is not only going to make them feel involved, it's actually going to involve them. And if you involve them, then all of a sudden they're a partner. And if they're a partner, then you have a relationship, and you have a relationship, they're going to stick around. But if I'm focused on productivity, I'm going to write this sucker and I am going to send it out as quickly as I can because I want to get on to the next ticket. But I'm not finishing the work in relationship to what our goals actually are. And this is the hardest thing about multitasking, is we start so many things. So our board starts to look like this, where we've just got so many things in doing that there's no way that we could possibly focus on them. And they're just building up and they're building up and they're building up because no one's telling them not to. And the board itself has got this little red thing that's saying, oh my God, you've got 14 things in your column already. But if we can't see that, we don't actually know. So this is a fairly normal board. So I just want to underscore the things that are unique about it, and that you can see the metrics. And just to note for you all, there's a definition of what we want to do. There's a quantitative and there's a qualitative set of metrics for each of these. Numbers are easy to fudge, and it's easy to lie, but it's pretty hard to do both. It's just weirdly hard to do both. So what I want you all to think about today, what I want people to think about is, yes, we're talking about multitasking, and we think about multitasking as, can that person handle that much work? But what we don't bother to do is to build a system that says, here's what upper management wants. Here's what middle management and us think we need to do to get this done. Here's what we're actually doing. And then that changes everybody's roles almost instantly. As an individual contributor, I'm thinking about strategy. As a C-level person, I'm looking at the board and I'm seeing how the strategy's developed. I'm seeing that you pulled in this Chair Giant document, and I'm like, that's interesting. I didn't think about that before. I'm going to stop by and I'm going to have a chat with those folks, and we're going to talk about how we want to handle that. Maybe I as the chief relationship officer, I want to be involved in that client review meeting, not as oversight, not as positional power, but because we are together generating a strategy of how we're going to partner with people. And we know that every person in the company is part of that building relationships element, or that thought leadership element, or the streamlining element. Maybe we can use these things to work together. And when we work together, we can avoid overload and multitasking.